The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good evening and welcome to the February 2025 edition of For the Love of Words. Tonight's poet is Lee Mendenhall. Lee is a baby boomer brought up in the Roslindale part of Greater Boston, educated in Boston public schools, took his engineering degree at Wentworth Institute. His late start in poetry began in the 1980s with study at the Boston Center for Adult Education and other workshops. Lee was the founding president of Amazing Things Art Center in Framingham, where he was involved in all the aspects of its community theater and spoken word work. His poems, plays, and essays have been published and read in Sale, Halas, Comstock Review, Off the Coast, Wingspan, the art centers of both Natick and Belmont, and the Metro West Daily News. He has 2 poetry collections that he has submitted to literary journals and is hoping for publication. He enjoys being retired, a father, a grandfather, and an offshore sailor. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
What brought you to the late start in poetry in the 1980s?
I was sort of expecting that question, and it's funny. I'm a little reticent to say, but it was the men's movement of the 1980, 89, 90. I know the men's movement has been kind of like a target of humor and some appropriate criticism. But you know, Robert Bly was a big part of that, and he was, I think, instrumental in bringing, poetry to my attention that had, kind of fallen beneath the other things in high school and my engineering studies.
So what poetry did you start writing? What was the form it took? Was it metric and rhyme, or was it blank verse?
It was mostly, I would say, free verse.
Okay.
I kind of worked into more of a form and formalist kind of poetry. I think that's 2/3 of what I write. I'm not sure why, but I think the structure of form kind of puts a little pressure on me, and I think I need a little pressure to get the juices flowing.
So what would you say the theme of your poetry, the main theme of most of your poetry might be?
I think there's a couple of themes. I mean, I think love has been one of the themes, and I'm not, not romantic love as much as, love of my married, my partner, my wife, and children, and basically love of people. That's one theme. Also a little bit about, the darker subjects, death and unfortunately at my age I've had enough experience with that to be aware of it. And a little bit of mythology.
Okay.
I find the mythology and a little bit of that kind of fantasy is creatively helpful.
And besides Robert Bly, which poets have influenced you?
I think Yeats has been a big influence. The translator and poet Coleman Barks has been an influence. I love a lot of the older, the modernist poets, Auden.
Wallace Stevens, perhaps?
Oh, Wallace Stevens for sure, yeah. He's very difficult to analyze sometimes, but I think that's part of why I like him.
That's because his real life job was an insurance agent, right. So that's probably why.
Yeah.
You have 2 poetry collections. I found this very interesting when I was reading your bio. You have 2 poetry collections that you've submitted to various literary journals. What is the distinction between the 2, rather than having just one collection? What distinguishes each one?
Okay, well, one of them is a series of 99 almost sonnets, and they're basically love poems addressed to my wife in marriage. So they all form kind of a unitary form. They're, as I say, almost sonnets, because the title of the collection is Incomplete Love. So the incomplete
Yeah.
is part of it. And I sort of based it on it. Neruda wrote 100 love sonnets
Yes, he
to
did.
his wife.
That's right.
And I really admired that. I'm not up to Neruda's standards, so I figured, okay, I'll take a line off and call it incomplete. And the other collection is basically, a general, selected.
And what's the working title of that particular collection?
That varies, but it's basically just, selected poems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because one of the aspects of submission that perhaps the audience may not be aware of is that a publisher may say, we'll accept your manuscript for publication, but we really want to change the title.
Right.
So that's why I said it as a working title. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's why it's very changeable, because I did quite a few guest columns for the Metro West Daily News in years past, and of course the editor chooses the title of
Right.
those columns
Right.
as well. So
This
I'm
is-
used to
right.
that.
Yeah, this is sort of the same
Yeah.
thing. I'm also curious to know if, when you submitted your manuscripts, did you have in mind a particular artwork or design for the covers of the collection? Because that's another aspect of publication that I'm not sure the audience knows. The editors usually of the literary journal usually have in mind a cover,
Right.
and the poet's input sometimes is taken into consideration, and other times it's not, because the literary journal may have a working relationship with an artist
Right.
who does their covers.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you yourself had a cover in mind for either of them.
Well, I have put together like I guess you'd call it a review copy of the love poem collection, and that cover is just kind of an abstract, lines with colors.
Okay.
The other, I haven't really thought of a cover. I think that's something that if I'm lucky enough to have it accepted, I'll be glad to let the editor have a lot of say in the cover.
Now, at your reading tonight here, will you be reading from one collection, both collections, or perhaps from neither collection?
Well, it'll be some from the general the general selected poems, and then a few just random poems.
Okay. You were a participant in the visual inverse exhibit.
Right, that was enjoyable.
At the Plymouth Art Gallery back a month or two ago. And I'm just wondering, is that an experience that you've had before, writing an ekphrastic poem?
Yes, I have had, unfortunately, a friend who was David Lang. He passed away a few years ago, but he's a sculptor, and I worked with him on an ekphrastic poem. I did bring that tonight too, and I've done ekphrastic on poets that I've admired.
Okay. So that, is it usually sculptures or is it paintings?
It's usually paintings,
Okay.
But David's a sculptor, but it's usually paintings.
Okay. So I think the audience is going to be very much entertained by your work tonight. I've had the pleasure of hearing you read, as you know,
Well, thanks.
at the Plymouth venue, Poetry, the Art of Words. And so I'm very pleased that you're here this evening and that the audience gets to hear
Well, thanks.
your
I'm
poetry.
very pleased to be here. It's a
Thank you so much.
experience.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. This is called Origami. Jacob Bohm, the physicist, his books now closed in libraries, says, when we talk, our words unfold their meanings, and all the rest are folded everywhere inside the universe. Words everywhere. Imagine all those meanings folded, butterfly and angel wings, invisibly thin, clasped ever so tightly, waiting patiently for us to speak, or water vapor hiding in the air, then rising up to form the clouds as morning coolness shows our breathing. Springs all folded under winters, roses folded in their buds, forests folded tight in acorns, generations in their ovaries. And when we die, like everyone, our meanings, senses, memories, all folded, all invisible and silent, waiting for God to speak the words again. I had a Siberian Husky that I really loved, and Valentine's Day is coming up, so this is Valentine for Sammy. With dignity, no matter what her pose, a vision of grays and white in a field of snow, she smells in color and loves the world with her nose. A cloud of scent around her ebbs and flows, erect, her softly pointed ears can know with sensitive triangulating pose a footfall's direction, the shape of heels and toes, if prey or predator, and where to go to make of prey a glove to warm her nose. Or hide downwind where nothing will disclose her hiding place, keeping her profile low with dignity no matter what her pose. Her thick fur ripples when a strong wind blows. She's relative to wolf, with eyes that glow, reflecting red as the scent of blood in her nose. Her nostrils twitch for carrion or rose. Her face and neck arch upward, taut as a bow. With dignity in every cell composed, she smells in color and loves the world with her nose. This is one in form, and I think it has a little bit of an ecological focus. It's called space travel. First, make believe the sun and the earth encompass all that you know and see. Night skies without a moon as black as death. Without the stars, how lonely would you be? No planets wandering, no constellations. Long hours underneath an empty sky. No hero's symbols stud the vault of heaven. No god or goddess marks the track they fly. Imagine now we're rocketing through space to see if it's as empty as it seems. Our spacecraft is a tiny, crowded place beyond all help from Earth's blue jeweled gleam. If anything goes wrong, we'll make repairs or die. To fight would be a tragedy. We must conserve our water, food, and air. Success depends on only you and me. Consider where you came from, traveler. This small blue dappled ball surrounded by what might as well be nothing. Rescuers won't come when no one hears our cry. With time and distance astronomical. If life transformed this world of water, gas, and stone by chance, what gods but we can dampen strife and act as if we know we are alone? This one is, instead of long division, I call this wrong division. I love what mathematics does for me. It helps the trucks and ships and airplanes move, but numbers by themselves are value-free, and I don't think the numbers will improve. Two major ways of measurement exist to judge and symbolize reality. Cold, neutral digits and the sums persist. And yet, without our words, the numbers die. Or do they? Elemental particles arrange themselves in quite exact proportions. Electrons, protons, to make molecules, must count themselves in rigid combinations. There was a time when times and we were tough, that we were innocent of calculation. When words like not enough or more than enough defined the boundaries of our equations. Then ways to add, subtract, and multiply were first devised to make accounts of trade and tax of farm and forge society. How many bricks of which a building was made? How many camels for the caravan? How many sheaves of wheat the king was due? How many years it takes to grow a man? Or for sculpted bronze to take a greenish hue. These processes engross most human themes. Add wealth or death, subtract a friend or foe, or multiply your troubles or your dreams. Division is the one most prone to woe. In all the others, numbers can transform whole objects, like an adjective does noun. How many more or fewer lambs are born? Division always brings a value down. We really ought to think on all of this. Estates divided for sons make daughters poor. A country divided by hate will soon diminish. With children divided by bullets, the horror du jour. Why does the cosmos have to follow rules? There is no evidence of any will, beyond we animals who have the tools but lack full power to project it still. For all we know, the universe is sterile, running down by laws enforced by math, the chill of entropy by numeral, and only Earth provides us choice and path. This is in free verse, Hibiscus Wintering. Each fall I bring you in, perhaps a little late, for you to avoid the bite of nighttime cold, and I feel the guilt of that. Indoors, the light is weak, the air is dry, the trauma clearly shown by how you shed your leaves and luster. They curl and dry and yellow, gathering and deepening like accusations on the floor. Did I care enough for you toward the end of summer? What can I do to repair in darkened times what I neglected in the light? And yet you show your past vitality, your last remaining leaves, at the end of stems grown tall, and tiny new ones at the nodes of thin, small boughs. With far less foliage, your frame is more apparent now. It might be time to prune your limbs, but I put it off. There are some buds, closed tight, but hinting they may be willing, after all, to flower. I'll wait to see if that can happen. And it does. Against the shortest hours, you open bright and striving reds, surrounding central licks of yellow flame like a tongue stuck out against the scientific fact of winter, summoning the lengthening of days. Blossoms reckless in fragility, proud magnificence of brevity, and invitations of desire, squeezing, then releasing a 2-day climax, slow motion spasms of attraction, fragrance, allure, their needs for bees and breeze, with all the energy near death that they can muster. Soon enough, your petals twist inward, a tight maternal shroud that does not hide the anther, stigma, filament, and style, projecting at the withered end. 2 days of full display, and then spent blossoms falling on the floor. Spring is months away, and I wonder just how you survive. What force has driven your flowering? All I can do is moisten you against forgetfulness, forgoing feeding lest you burn. Perhaps with reshaping, I'll lighten your efforts by thinning and heading the leggiest limbs. But when I bring the shears, I hesitate again. I notice another bud at the tip of the longest stem, which I cannot bear to separate from its pointless ambition. Is it kinder to cut back and thin for the future, or honor the uncontrollable to live for now? Again, I don't like long introductions, but I need to give a little one for this. This is about my friend David Lang's sculpture called Journey. David worked in welded wire sculptures, and toward the end of his work, he was doing mostly winged sculptures, and this was one of them. And in the middle of the sculpture, almost hidden, was a tiny little figure, animated, that was made to look like its pedaling was animating the whole sculpture and the wings. And so this is really meant to personify the little man at the center of this sculpture and a lot of other people as well. It's called Eistir, which is Irish for journey, for David Lang's journey. I was the man you know as Otzi once, who hunted in an ecstasy of height, although the anorexic wind and snow pierced deeply through the winter months. With all I chose to bear, my gait was slow. On sunlit days, the birds above me in their flight aroused a longing I can't give to words, and so I dreamed to fletch my shafts with feather, to stabilize their course in mortal weather. And I was Icarus, the first to conquer gravity. I soared between the cumulus and cirrus, far above the shore and city, until my fastenings grew lax. I forbid you reading this to call it tragedy. I gladly gave the sun my offering of wax and fully embraced the overpowering pull of the sea. And I was Kepler, linking all the cosmic spheres, the poet Hopkins with his dazzle-dappled fangle, scribing skylark song encumbered by a cage, two brothers bending air with ribs and scrim, once wheelwrights raying spokes to rim, Da Vinci's winged devices that flew above the page, Eiffel blending limber curve and rigid angle, and Earhart navigating far beyond her fears. Who am I now? A human being needs no name, who feels the sky inside the swaying bough, who rises to the passion's flame, refuses where the ordinary sit, devises moving things with grace in every joint, and journeys to the edge of all our captive world with persevering legs and wings unfurled to touch at every point the infinite. This is a little bit of an older one in form. It's about the Greek hunter Actaeon, who was a mortal in mythology, who, when he was out in the woods, came across the goddess of the hunt, Diana, or Actaeon, Artemis in the Greek version. And he was not supposed to see her naked. And he refused to look away, and she gave him a very bad day as a result of that. Seeing the goddess, I, Actaeon, tell a mortal story, how my glory through my hubris fell, how I died with forfeit bride, how knowing leads to hell. My friends and I would run, both dog and boy in youthful joy, beneath the Aegean sun. The local sparrows dodged our arrows. It wasn't all in fun. Our calling was to hunt. Our knives grew keen, our muscles lean, our spears were never blunt. The trophy reigned. We never deigned to settle for the runt. One fateful noonday when the hounds were blooded, game was routed, hunting done for then. My doom to start, I walked apart from dozing dogs and men. In deeper woods beside our hunting grounds, where trees surround a secret, woe-betide adventurers who would incur the wrath of what's inside. The tangled underbrush of cypress, pine, and creeping vine opened to a lush and fertile fen. A grassy glen lay round me in a hush. My senses were imbued as in a dream. Beside the stream played nymphets many-hued. Their robes and gowns were strewn around, and every one was nude. I'd seen the mysteries, moors, and entropy, and I could see these weren't those temple cores. Their eyes were bright, their teeth were white and sharp as carnivores. Round one they bathed, they sung. I saw with a shiver, cast-off quiver, hunting bow unstrung. She was Diana, heaven manna. Fool, I strode among the naked deities with arrogance and took my stance to see as I would please. I had no sphere. She had no spear. Her bow was too far to seize. Only tooth and knuckle arm you now, till I allow you weapons to rebuckle. Your rose-tipped breast should cower, lest I find the urge to suckle. I need no bronze-edged arms. I am goddess of the forest. I have other charms. Your seeing all will be your fall. Behold how nature harms. She reached into an urn. With a splash, her water lashed upon me like a burn. Great antlers grew above my brow, my limbs were tipped with horn. Reflecting in the springs, my lengthened stride, my skin turned hide, I felt fear's beating wings, as panic-stricken as a chicken who runs in headless rings. Diana's parting cry behind, I fled on hooves now cleft, to warn my friends nearby. I had forgot the game they sought, a stag as grand as I. My troubled spirits leapt at hunting horn, but fear was born my death would be unwept by friends and home, just meat and bone and promises unkept. I see it plain as day. I burst through brush in such a rush to warn my friends at play, but I can't talk. My speech is blocked, denied my bestial way. The hunters rise, hounds by their sides, and soon have me at bay. The tearing fangs and spear point bangs on bone as all goes gray, the blood that flies and knives that sigh beneath my skin to flay. Far more than once allowed, I know nature, every feature from void to mushroom cloud, and of them all, the great, the small, what should be most proud. Now hear me if you can. Like lifeless stones, my scattered bones answer pride of men. But never mind. If time rewinds, I do it all again. This is leaving the station. Among the walls, graffiti sliding past, one phrase jumps out. I waited more than an hour. Almost palpably, it tugged my sleeve and tightened memories across my heart. Have you been one of those whose hopes were dashed? When does the waiting end? And does it count, the time from when the meeting first was promised, days or months or half a century? And what if after all that time, the place is razed, built over, gentrified, fenced off? We've read romances built on promises to meet beyond a marriage or a war, but circumstances conspiring to intervene with time that alters everything: desire, wealth, appearance, memory. I've missed appointments with regret. Did I dream it? Did I make a promise to meet at such and such a place and time, or at a date and place unknown, with one I may or may not recognize again? Perhaps when all I'm meant to do is done, but that one thing that no one can avoid. The city workers with their brushes, pails, and stain removers come to wash that wall.
Welcome to For the Love of Words. I'm Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, your host, and today it gives me great pleasure to welcome from across the pond Pete Colorado with a very American-sounding last name, and he is in the United Kingdom. And welcome, Pete. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm really, I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. It's been almost a month now in the waiting. And so I'm just eager to anticipate and answer your questions.
Great. Well, first of all, tell our audience a little bit about your background, where you were born and raised, and if there were any influences in your childhood that put you on the musical path.
Okay, well, I wasn't born in England. I was born in India, okay, and I schooled in a little place called Darjeeling. And why I happened to be there was that my dad was actually in the British forces, and he was out in Burma during the war. So he was out there with Mountbatten and have you. And after the war, I believe when the Japanese apparently attacked Burma, the Chinese, by all accounts, opened what they call a back door to allow the Brits out. And my dad helped on the trek, and he moved to India. So I schooled for a little while there. And then after the war, my dad decided to come back to England. And of course, I was too young. I couldn't have a passport or anything like that. And also, they gave me a travel document. They wouldn't issue me with a passport because it said that I was born with foreign parents. So that was it. So I came to England, finished off my schooling here. And what else do you want to know? that is actually a bit of my background, you know. So my mom is actually, both my parents have gone now, but my mom was actually from the Paolini clan of Italians from Sicily. How she got to Burma is another matter. I've never known this. And my dad is actually French Portuguese. I've never met any of my grandparents. I would have loved to, but unfortunately, the war probably got rid of a lot of them. You know, they died during the war. I know my dad's parents died during the war. So apart from that, I don't know anything else. I know that they were wine producers. But while my dad was in the army, while my dad was in Burma in the forces, apparently his family in France got a direct hit, wiped out the family, and for about 3 months, the French government asked for sole surviving members of the Coty family, because my dad comes from the Coty family. And they couldn't get in touch with him because of the war. And I think it went to maybe some others in the family. But that's all I know, you know.
Did either of your parents have any musical talent?
They never played it. I think my dad, I might have seen my dad strum a guitar, but it was very, very rare. So we never had a guitar in the house. So I was growing up, my first musical influences was my mum. My mum used to sing all the time. And my mum used to sing sort of like the Jim Reeves kind of hits. Of course, I was young. I didn't know who these country stars were or anything like that. But there was one particular song that she knew, because I must have only been about 5 or 6. And she used to sing this old Shirley Temple song, and On a Good Ship Lollipop. And so, of course, that was the first thing that was the first song I ever learned. And I learned it off my mum. She used to sing it all the time. So it was kind of drummed into me, you know. So that was my first musical influence. And probably later on, when I went to school, I was introduced to rock and roll, in a sense. People used to have records, and, you know, they used to have these wind-up gramophones and stuff like that. And I used to hear these things. And the first film I ever saw was Elvis in Jailhouse Rock. Oh. And when I saw that, I thought, that's what I want to do. So I've tried to follow in those steps. But later on, while I was in school from a very, very early age, I was kind of good at words. I was good at rhyming things and stuff, because I used to write a lot of limericks. There was a friend of mine in school. We used to have competitions of who could write better limericks, you know. We were both, we studied English a lot, and we loved it. And so then after that, I think when I got to about 16, I started hearing, I had seen some other films. I had seen some films like from America, some black and white films. I remember seeing a film called Teenage Millionaire. And then I went on to some other film. It was all in black and white, but whenever they played the records, we saw the bands in color. So I remember bands like Marv Johnson, Vicky Spencer, Dion DiMucci, Jackie Wilson, Bill Black's Combo. These are the names from a very, very early age have come to me and have stuck with me. So these were all part of my growing up, you know. And when I got to about 16, I had a mate of mine who used to come from pretty far off up in Tottenham. And he was an excellent guitar player. Even at 14, he was very, very good. And so he used to come over to my house when I was living in Streatham, back in London. And Gary used to play this guitar, you know, beautifully well. And of course, I had a guitar, but I was only kind of learning. I just knew a few chords and stuff. And he started playing music that I'd never heard before. And I remember the one that really intrigued me most was a song from Tony Joe White, the swamp soul music guy who came from Arkansas. And it was Polk Salad Annie. So I saw Gary play this, and this sort of rang a bell in me, you know, and I thought, I got to learn this. So Gary used to show us a few chords and showed us how to play things. But for me, it took a bit of a while, you know. but I persevered, and I managed to master it in the end.
So
And then
how would you characterize your music if you were to give it a genre? Would it be country pop or country rock and roll or?
as well, I was very influenced by Neil Diamond. I'll say I heard some things like Crunchy Granola Sweet, Brother Love's Salvation Show, because Diamond was very, very funky to begin with. This was long before that hit he had. I think we sing it now at the football grounds and stuff like that, which was Sweet Caroline. And it was long before that. And so I was kind of getting into Neil Diamond. I liked his phrasing, and I was into funk music. I was into soul music. I was into basically anything that was good to my hearing. I was up for it, So as a songwriter, and in England, growing up with all kinds of genres of music, everything came natural to me, So I went from reggae to rock, to blues, to country, to you name it, to pop rock. All these sort of things were normal to me. So I would attempt to write songs in any of those veins. I would write according to how my emotions were getting to me. If I thought of something, I would write it down. I was also influenced by the American Song Festival because I got a songwriter. I became a member of that, and I used to get the Songwriter magazine every month. So I was learning a lot from the American songwriters. And I always thought that when somebody wrote a song, that was it. But the Americans put me on to rewriting of songs. He said, because nobody here, in fact, they were saying that every hit that you hear isn't just written, it's rewritten. So then I started thinking more and more and more about it, And I want to tell you a little story, Priscilla. When I was about 18, I had written about maybe a couple of songs, and my eldest sister, who was an air hostess, all the big interline balls used to have, once a year, they would have a great big ball. And at one of these balls, she met a DJ from the BBC, a guy called Pete Murray. And she opened up to Pete and told Pete that I wrote songs and I had an interest in music. So Pete one day phoned me and he said, I understand you write songs. So I said, well, I'm starting to. So he said, when you've written your first 6 songs, give me a bell and let me know. So I did. And he arranged for me to meet him up in Tottenham Court Road at KPM Music in Denmark Street, which was like the Tin Pan Alley, sort of equivalent to the Tin Pan Alley that you would have in New York. And all the publishers and all this were there. And even some of the demo recording studios were there. Well, on this particular day, of course, I never drove. I had to travel by transport or whatever, train, busing it in and everything. And I finally got to KPM Music. And as I got up the stairs and I went into the room, Pete met me. I was meeting him for the first time. And he turned around to me and he said, you're late. So I said, I'm sorry about that. I said, but I can't help it if things are delayed. He said, I was hoping you'd be on time. He said, because we had Neil Diamond in here. He said, and I wanted Neil to hear your songs. He said, but obviously, he said, he couldn't stick around. He said, and you were late. He said, so you've missed this opportunity. And that was the closest I got to actually meeting Neil. So that was, I was very, very disappointed with that. But I suppose that's the way it goes. Maybe someday I will meet him.
So some of your early experiences, how did you get your gigs?
I formed a band when I started working when I was about 16. And we were rehearsing well enough. And the drummer that we had was a mechanic where I was working. And Johnny one day came to us and he said, I can't make the rehearsal. He said, because I've got an audition. So we were very disappointed. We all sort of looked at each other and we asked him and we said, who with? He said, well, there's a young band coming up, a band called The Foundations. He said, they're looking for a drummer He says, and it's an opportunity for me. He said, so I'm going to go and do it. And Johnny was about 16, 17 at the time. And so he went along and he came back and he said, by the way, he said, I'm sorry. He said, but I can't play with y'all no more. He said, I'm in the foundations. And that was it. So that band never got off the ground. And then later on, when I was talking about Gary earlier on, I said to Gary one day, I said, we need to start a band. I said, if any of y'all sing, he said, great. He said, but if y'all don't, I said, y'all play better instruments than I do. I said, so I'll be the lead singer. So we joined an agency, and this agency every weekend used to phone us up. Well, not me directly, but phone up one of the guys and say, you'll be playing at such and such a place. You'll be playing at this pub, or you'll be doing this gig somewhere else. And that's how we actually got our gigs. We used to move around South London, the whole of South London, we would go. Sometimes we would go as far as Heathrow Airport. We had some big pubs around there that we had band competitions. We would enter them, so we won about maybe 2 band competitions. We were doing covers then. We weren't doing my own material. And when I decided to try and do my own songs, as my songs were getting better and getting stronger, I asked the guys, I said, look, I've got an idea to do a sort of like an acoustic set. So if you're not up for that, I said, we'll do about maybe just half an hour, do 6 of my songs. I said, and then we'll go back onto the covers. They weren't too happy about that. They weren't too inclined. They weren't overexcited about it. So that went down the pan as well. And after that, I thought, I've got to leave the band, because if I'm going to progress in any manner, I have to leave them. And also because I want to start writing other material. So that's what I started doing. So I used to send a lot of my stuff to Johnny Godin, who was in KPM Music. And he used to encourage me and tell me that this competition is coming up. They're looking for a song for the European, whatever, every year they have these competitions in Europe. He said, they're looking for a song. They're looking for a British entry. And why don't you just write in a couple of songs and send them over to me? So I used to never get anywhere with these things, Because I always felt, and I later on got to know that you have to be in it to win it. So I was completely out of it. I didn't know anybody apart from Johnny Gordon. There were a lot of songwriters around who already had their feet in the door, so to speak. So these were the guys whose songs were being chosen. I was completely out of it. And then as my songs got stronger and stronger and stronger, I wrote a song. I was getting heavily influenced by the American soul sort of artists. I used to listen to a lot of Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, Joe Tex, I don't know, the Marquez, the Barquez.
So Pete,
a whole heap of them.
Pete, how old were you at this time in your musical journey?
I was only a teenager. I think I must have been I don't think I was even 20 at the time.
Wow.
So I was looking at all these things, and by that time, the seeds had already been sown. I was going to be a songwriter, and that was it. And nothing was going to shift me from that.
So have you continued to do that? Did you subsequently join a band, or have you been on your own ever since and writing your own material?
I've been writing my own material from then on, because as my songs got better and I was introduced, I think I was introduced to somebody via the songwriting magazine in Limerick City. I joined them, and in there was an advert. There was a guy looking for songs. And by then I had already written Back at My Side. I had demoed it, a fairly good demo, but it wasn't the demo, it wasn't the actual broadcast quality that you've got now, because through the years, I've been my harshest critic. If I've done something, I always feel that I can do it better. And when the time is right and when I've got enough money, then I go into a decent studio, I get decent musicians, and I just go for it, because I've been self-efficient,
Pete,
financially.
Pete,
Yes.
I have to interrupt you for 1 minute. We have about 3 minutes left for the interview because we certainly want to hear your wonderful music. So
Okay.
bring us up to date. Tell us a little bit about the songs that you've provided us and what inspired you for each song.
Okay, very, very quickly, in a nutshell. Back at My Side was inspired because my brother one day phoned me up and he told me, he said, I've got something to tell you. So I went over and visited him, and he told me, he said, my wife's asked me for a divorce. I knew his marriage was in trouble, and he was sort of in a daze. He didn't know where to go from there. So I told him, I said, you need to get yourself a lawyer. I said, you need to jot down whatever you have to say or whatever you want to do about this divorce. And I went home from there, and I picked up my guitar and I started strumming around, and I was hitting sort of E and E minor and goes like that. And the lyrics just came to me because I knew how much he actually loved her and he didn't really want this divorce. And that's what inspired me to write Back at My Side. My other song, Come On World, that's a long story. I don't think you've got even 3 minutes to cover it, but I found an article in a Marie Claire magazine, and I was moved by it, and I decided to actually go for this. So I was taking a refrigeration course at the time, and the following day when I went to work at this college, Refrigeration College, I saw this guy. He was sitting opposite me in the canteen, and I told him, I said, I found this very interesting article. And I said, it's about Agoniland. I said, it's terrible things are happening in Agoniland. I had never heard about the Agoni people. I never even knew where it was. And he said to me, and he said, I'm one of these people. And I didn't really believe him. And I went through this yeah attitude, you know. And he said, no, honestly, he said, would you like to see a couple of VHS tapes? So I said, yeah, okay. So he brought these 2 VHS tapes in for me. And I spent 5 hours on the weekend watching what actually unfolded in me. I couldn't believe the oil devastation upon this beautiful, rich agricultural land. And Agoni land, sort of for these people, were only like maybe 240 square kilometers, but it's situated right in the oil-rich Delta region of Nigeria. And Shell Oil had got a contract to do oil exploration. They put all the pipes and everything sort of above ground, and that's what caused the devastation. So I wrote the song because I didn't want Bob Dylan to get it. That's the main issue.
I see. Now tell me, what are your future plans? We have about 30 seconds left.
I'm on a promotion. I'm speaking to you. I'm on a promotion. I'm also hoping that people will hear my songs. And because Back at My Side was actually covered by a Philadelphia soul singer back in 1994. And since then, I redid it, which is what you've got now. And I kept it on ice. And only recently, when I started doing this promotion, I decided to actually push it out. So that's what I'm actually doing. And I'm hoping that somebody will hear it, along with Come On World, and maybe give me a single release, because that's what I want. I want the whole world to hear my material.
Well,
and
good.
know who I am.
And wonderful. And we're going to have to say, stop it there. But I want to wish you all the success, continued success. And we're looking forward to hearing your wonderful and amazing music. So keep it going. And thank you for joining me today on For the Love of Words. Pete.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Pete Colorado. All the best.
Thank you.
I'd seen the light till you walked out of my life. Hey, I ain't gonna stop till my body drops, and I have you back at my side. Sure enough, I've been a fool. And I'd say now that I've broken all the rules. Hey, and this heavy load on life's gravel road ain't gotta ease till you see you back at my side. But you and I, we could talk this through. There's so much of me inside of you. This lonely heart, hey, that keeps tearing apart. It's trying to save its hide of wanting you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, this ocean's too wide. Now I need you back at my side. It's getting harder with every day, as my grip on you slowly slips away. Hey, and another time, and another place, I'm gonna see your face back at my side. 'Cause baby, I've never seen the light till you walked out of my life. Hey, I ain't gonna stop till my body drops, and I have you back at my side. But you and I, we could talk this through. There's so much of me inside of you. This lonely heart, hey, that keeps tearing apart. It's trying to save its hide of wanting you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, this ocean's too wide. Now I need you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, this ocean's too wide. Now I need you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, ocean's too wide. Now I need I'd never had seen the light till you walked out of my life. Hey, I ain't gonna stop till my body drops, and I have you back at my side. Sure enough, I've been a fool, and I'd say now that I've broken all the rules. Hey, and this heavy load you back at my side. You and I, we could talk this through. There's so much of me inside of you. This lonely heart, hey, that keeps tearing apart. It's trying to save its hide of wanting you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, this ocean's too wide. Now I need you back at my side. It's getting harder with every day, as my grip on you slowly slips away. Hey, and another time, and another place, I'm gonna see your face back at my side. 'Cause baby, I'd never seen the light till you walked out of my life. Hey, I ain't gonna stop till my body drops, and I have you back at my side. You and I, we could talk this through. There's so much of me inside of you. This lonely heart, hey, that keeps tearing apart. It's trying to save its hide of wanting you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, this ocean's too wide. Now I need you back at my side. Baby, now I know I never should have let you go. Without you, this ocean's too wide. Now I need you back at my side.